Hey friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and if you enjoy saving your money and getting the highest interest on it, you're in luck because today I'm doing an update on the best high yield interest bank accounts as of January 2023. And if you've watched my channel before, you know that I'm all about that zero fee life where why should we be paying banks any fees if we're willing to essentially lend our money to them? They should be paying us way more interest on our hard earned and saved money. So with that in mind, I've gathered over 50 banks to update you on what their highest rates are. And not all of them are the best. You have to really read the fine print. So I'll talk about a few examples of things that I stay on the lookout for. And if this all sounds good to you, I hope you'll like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel because I'm all about you and I earning the highest interest on our money. So thanks. The last time I did an update on this topic in October 2022, there were already a few banks that were offering rates between 4 to 5%, but the majority of them were still offering rates below 3%. And now that's changed for the better because a lot of these banks are offering rates between 4 to 5%, and very few are offering below 3%. And this largely is because these high interest banks follow along with what the Federal Reserve is doing. And the Fed has been busy hiking rates of their Fed funds rate throughout 2022 7 times, so much so that in their December 2022 meeting, they hiked by 50 basis points to a target range of between 4.25% to 4.5%. And that inspired a lot of these high interest banks to offer very comparable rates as well. And the even better news is in 2023, the Fed is projected to raise rates even more, such that there's going to be increases of another 25 basis points in February to the range of between 4.5 to 4.75%. And then by late March, another 25 basis points up to all the way 4.75 to 5%. So could you imagine that many more banks this year could even be offering 5% plus? But I'm optimistic that we might be getting pretty competitive savings rates coming soon to a bank near us, at least online, because a lot of brick and mortar banks aren't offering high interest rates at all. So you can totally leave those behind and rely on plenty of online banks that are FDIC insured, which is a thing that you should definitely look out for before you put any money into any online bank. And so with that, I think that there's a lot that we can still gain this year, even if we park our money in an online bank that's offering around the 4% mark. And I also just want to reassure you that none of this content is sponsored because I'm always trying to find the best interest rate for myself, my family, or my friends. So these are the kinds of things that I would be on the lookout for. And I have no qualms about changing banks as long as they're reputable. And if I feel confident that my money will be secure at this bank, then I might switch up my banks every now and then. So this is totally my neutral opinion, and I'm not endorsing any particular bank account. This is just for your education and informational purposes only. And with that being said, I usually start out my search for high yield banks by surveying a few websites, including deposit accounts. And we can see that the average savings rate is around 3.6% and the average money market rate is about 3.4%. So that might give you a clue as to what some minimum levels are that are acceptable if you want to get some higher rates of return. And I also like deposit accounts because they give you reviews of banks from actual people, and those are really key to pay attention to see what other people's experience has been like with any given bank. And they also rank them based on the health of the bank, and I don't know how much we can trust the bank health, so keep that with a grain of salt. But other than that, I also check lists like NerdWallet, and lately I've noticed NerdWallet just pretty much offers their sponsored banks. So a lot of these are kind of stuck between the 3.3 to 3.75% range. So to me, that's kind of not good enough. And one that I think has a better list is Investopedia's, where all of these names are between 4 to 4.35%. So I think that this is a way better quality list because it's showing you the actual highest yield savings account as far as what's out there. And so between all of those, you should probably survey around and not just immediately go with the top first result, because you might be getting a better deal if you dig a little bit more across a few websites. And another good website is bestcashcow.com. That one also shows you a running list of some of the highest savings rates that you might be able to find, and also offers reviews of banks. So between all of these sources, you're bound to find a bank that hopefully you're comfortable with. Whenever I'm looking for a high yield bank account, I try to find one that imposes the least amount of conditions on me. And there are a couple that are offering the highly attractive rate of 5%, but there are definitely strings attached. And it also caps out on how much you can earn that rate of return on. So one of them is the Consumers Credit Union, which will offer you the 5% on balances up to $10,000. But they also require you to spend a monthly $1,000 using their credit card. So to me, that's a turnoff already, because I don't want to have to spend money just to earn 5%. And also there's another one called Vero, and their savings account offers the 5% on balances up to $5,000, but then they require you to have direct deposit and also maintain a positive balance at every month. So between the both of these, even though they could be okay for some people, you just have to be aware of the conditions that they're putting on people. And I don't like, again, getting capped out at a certain maximum, because I like saving higher amounts of money than what these accounts are offering, and this is just not going to do it for me. And next among the higher yielding banks includes one I've talked about before that usually impresses me, and it's one where we shouldn't judge a book by its cover, because it's called Redneck Bank. And I know what some of you could be thinking, and that, is this a real bank? And it's actually real. It's totally legit. And they're currently offering a checking account with 4.5%. And that's pretty impressive, considering this bank has no minimums to keep the account open and no monthly service fees. So that's pretty awesome. But one caveat is that it seems like you have to have 10 debit card purchases a month to get that rate of return. So just keep that in mind. And also that 4.5% is only on balances up to $15,000. So that's also a little bit of a restriction, which is not super ideal, but maybe some people might be willing to live with this kind of bank. And then the next one that I don't know much about is called My Savings Direct, immigrant bank subsidiary, and that one's offering 4.35%. And then one I've talked about before is Fitness Bank, which is pretty awesome, offering 4.25% if you get their combined checking and savings account. And this could be awesome for anyone who likes to count their steps and wants to get a high interest yield on their bank account. So that's pretty cool of a concept, and could be motivating as a win-win to lose weight while making money. And then also another one that I've talked about before, which I wasn't so impressed with, is the LAC Capital Federal Credit Union. And part of the reason why I'm not so into them is because they impose a lot of restrictions, in my opinion. And they also talk about earning dividends, which is sort of confusing, because I usually associate earning interest with banks not getting dividends, but this is sort of a credit union, so maybe they like to talk about earning interest as if they were dividends. But some of their restrictions include how they have a minimum balance requirement of $5, and they have a monthly service fee of $8, and if you don't have the average daily balance requirements met, and then they have a minimum opening deposit of $50. And if you have over $10,000 in the account, your APY will go down from 4.25% to 0.52%. And worst of all, in my opinion, is that they require you to have 15 monthly debit card purchases or transactions, which to me is kind of inconvenient. So it's one of the reasons why I would pass on this kind of account. And continuing down the list of high yield bank offerings, I'm not going to read each of these to you, but just give you a high level idea of what you can expect, and feel free to screenshot this. But as promised, here's my list of over 50 bank high yield offerings, and they include Western State Bank at giving you 4.25%, along with Western Alliance Bank giving you 4.23%, and Popular Direct Savings at 4.16%. Basque Bank at 4.15%, and then the ones that are kind of lower in the 4 to 4.1% range include Salem 5 Direct giving you 4.1%, and there's Garden Savings Federal Credit Union checking at 4.07%, or Ivy Bank Savings at 4.05%, and also Bread Savings giving you 4%, or Presidential Bank checking also giving you 4%. And then T-Mobile checking used to be pretty good at giving 4% on balances up to $3,000 for T-Mobile customers. But if you're not a T-Mobile customer, you might only be able to settle for the 2.5% on all balances, which is not nearly as competitive with most of these. And actually, the interesting thing is T-Mobile is offering a checking account called T-Mobile Money, which is related to Customers Bank. And if you just open an account with Customers Bank itself, that can get you a savings account rate of 4.05%. So it's a little bit quizzical why the overall balance that they would offer to anyone is not catching up to that rate. And then also going down the line, if you want to have all of your savings and maybe investing in one place, you could be possibly using Wealthfront, and their savings rate is 3.8%. And some of them offer the 3.75% range like SoFi or Synchrony. And then we also have E-Trade giving you 3.5%, and Barclays at 3.4%, and Ally giving you 3.3%. And that's the same with American Express, Discover Bank, Capital One. So the bar for a lot of some of the bigger names seems to be set kind of low at the 3.3% range. And then you have a few that are still below 3%, which are okay probably, but maybe not as ideal. So I hope this list was helpful as to what you can expect for current high yield interest rates, keeping in mind that some of these are subject to change and could potentially go even higher by the time the Fed hikes their interest rate, and then maybe banks will be inspired to raise their rates even more. So this can only be a good thing for us savers. And in the meantime, maybe you might want to go with one of these because 4% is better than 0%, especially with inflation still being relatively higher. So I'll take what I can get in getting highest yields while keeping conditions on me from banks pretty low. And a couple of final tips I wanted to share with you include how when you're shopping around for high yield bank offerings, banks should make it super obvious what their rate is, and the ones that seem to make it difficult might make you want to think twice before you consider them even further. Like this one example from Zinlo Bank makes you press a button that opens a PDF just to see what their current rates are. And when you actually see it, you see that their higher yielding, more money market account is no longer an active product. So to me, that's a huge red flag and makes me think twice about that bank. And then also you might be wondering, what about certificates of deposits, or also known as CDs or just certificates? And those are seeming to give pretty high yields as well, in the high 4% range. Like for example, with Alliant, their 1-year CD is giving you 4.6%, and then their 5-year CD is giving you 4.25%. But this is a little quizzical because it seems that the shorter term one is giving you a higher yield, which to me is sort of suggesting that the economy could be heading into a recession, because normally you get higher yields with longer term sort of mini loans that these CDs are, because you're basically lending your money to a bank and they're basically taking that as a loan from you to kind of give you some interest for holding onto your money for these extended periods of time. So with that in mind, it's sort of weird that you'd be getting a higher short-term interest rate compared to the long rate. And also, these CDs are not as liquid as a normal money market or savings or checking account is. So you can get your money out for any reason at any time with the normal bank offerings, but you have to be willing to lock up your money for at least a year or more with some of these CDs. So to me, I just don't see that as worth it, especially when a lot of bank offerings are pretty competitive and they're not that much lower in interest rate compared to CDs, but that might be an option for some people if you don't need that money to be super liquid and you're okay with locking it up for longer periods of time. So it could be a decent option for people as well, and you'll see that on plenty of these bank sites as well. So feel free to check out CDs if that's of interest to you. And so if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please like and subscribe, and I wish you well on getting the highest amount of return on your saved money. Till next time.